Welcome back, guys, to What's News. I'm J77, back after a 2 week absence. So let's get right straight to it. I'm going to be focusing on some of the policies at hand of the Trump administration. As much as I don't want to, I believe that this is something that just cannot be ignored, especially what have taken place 24 hours ago, or in this case 48 hours ago, and what actually even took place a few weeks ago. This is something that I think Trump is getting a little bit frustrated about, and many of the analysts, a lot of political analysts from both sides, fear that this is going to have a rippling domino effect in terms of what he wants to do and how difficult he may get it done, even with a Republican-led Congress in both the Senate and in the House of Representatives. So, as in case you guys have not been following the news, or pretty much didn't really bother to care, because you'd be surprised, the media has really downplayed this incident. You'd think it'd be top news, but it hasn't really been that much up top news. They have talked about it, they have mentioned it, but it really has been okay. We're gonna talk about this after we talk about everything else, and particularly for New York, I think the media has sensed there was no way they was going to pass it on this current form, and that is the Affordable Care Act, or the Republicans like to call Obamacare. As you guys heard, it's been shot down. It has failed to pass. Or in this case, they didn't even put it up for a vote. Majority Leader Paul Ryan just basically said they didn't have enough votes, and rather than just go in and basically see it get struck down, they just rather not even put it up there to vote for, period. And a lot of this had to do with many factors. One, those who are on the right who just want to see Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act just can be completely repealed without even replacing it for anything else, really felt it didn't go far enough in repealing Obamacare. A lot of people was calling it Obama Light, which I find kind of amusing considering what they was what it was going to do if the thing was passed. And even people in the moderate who saw this bill felt this was just too much of people losing their health care, to the point where if they pass it, those people who have lost their health care or are forced to pay more money for premiums may actually retaliate by voting them out in 2 years' time. So pretty much there's a whole lot of different factions to why this thing was not passed. And without really going into the screaming and shouting situation, because Trump did make a respond, and he basically, as expected, blame the Democrats for it not being passed. It didn't go with them, and the Democrats, of course, responded saying that, hey, you never talked to us, you had no intention of talking to us, you didn't want our input, you just wanted to pass this, and that's it. And they got a point. They didn't ask for the input. This thing just came out of nowhere. Trump said, I'm going to support it, without actually, again, seemed to be the habit of not just him, but a lot of people in Congress, without actually taking the thought what the consequences that can lead to those who actually have their health care, like their health care, and like to keep their health care. There are a lot of people who do on Obamacare said it helped them great dearly. We've seen them in the town halls. We see them talk about it through different websites. We see it talk about it through their own podcasts on YouTube and abroad. So it's not just that simple for them to just gut out the system and not expect anyone to be upset about that. There are a lot of people that's going to be affected by it, and I think what was the turning point about what has happened with the Freedom Caucus is that they basically point out that more people will be uninsured than they would be insured, which didn't help Trump factors at all. Even though Trump insisted that this was going to help people down the road, other people said otherwise, and that would led to them basically saying, "Hey, we can't do this. We gotta do an about face." I will say this about the administration, whether I agree with them cutting it or not. At least I can say that Trump, the vice president, those who is in this house, they were trying to push for this. They was going to state, trying to get a lot of people on board, trying to convince the Republicans to get on board, trying to, basically say this is this is the best spot we have going forward. And he really wanted to get this thing passed. And that's fine. I have no problem with them doing it. That's their job to do it. They have to pitch this idea is going to work. I think what's happened with the Trump administration, I think he underestimates the pettiness of the Republican Party, or just politics in general. Because I think you don't realize just how much they even though they claim to be the Republican Party, and even the same thing goes with the Democrat Party, they're all going to be different factions or different groups of that party that will not go along with what he said, and this is pretty much the proof positive of it. Again, you can blame the Democrats all you want, but the reality was there were a lot of Republicans. Enough Republicans said, no, we're not going to do this. And there was even more so enough Republicans that said, no, I want more to be done. I don't want to see Obamacare. We promised to get rid of Obamacare, and we didn't happen. So right now, Obamacare is still here. Affordable Care Act is still here, and it's going to be here for the time being. It looks like for now, President is going to let it happen. It's going to let the Affordable Care Act move forward until what he claims is going to happen explodes or implode on itself, forcing the Democrats to make a move. And that's what he's going to do. He's going to let this thing fail and prove and make the situation say, see with your own eyes, see what happened. We had a chance to fix this, you didn't. Because that's basically what he's saying. He's saying that the Democrats own this, they 100% own it, and whatever happens, what happens, you guys have yourself to blame. Of course, Nancy Pelosi, as well as Bernie Sanders, and my senator, Chuck Schumer, was very happy. They considered this victory for Americans, explaining how people who are all on Obamacare actually like their services, and that's helped them a great deal. And even in most Democratic-run cities, they're starting to push the Affordable Care a lot more than they probably ever had when it was first introduced. I've seen commercials. I've seen people, basically trying to get people to sign up. So they are now pushing more than ever to have people to get Affordable Care Act, to get affordable health care, which is something that this country simply cannot ignore. There's not enough. There's a lot of people, even those who are working. I'm going to make this very clear, because a lot of people assume that those who are getting health insurance are those who are basically sitting at home not doing anything. That's not true. There are people who are working. Unfortunately, these jobs don't make enough income or cannot afford to buy a package for their own employees. Thus, a lot of employees are working without having medical insurance. This is something a big deal, and something that must be talked about in the future from both parties. Both parties need to address a lot of issues, because it's not just the Affordable Care Act that you can either hate or love. It's the fact that you have a medical field that overcharge a lot of money. I mean, it lends a lot of money, to the point where if you don't have insurance and God forbid something happens to you, that could lead you to bankruptcy very, very quick. That could destroy your credit very, very quick. And that alone could have a domino effect of what you want to do in the future. You want to get a loan out? Well, too bad. You didn't pay your medical bills on time. You want to get a job? Well, guess what? If you're in some of those states that still do financial background check, that can come out and saying that you're not responsible enough. Why should we hire you? There's a whole lot of stuff that can actually hinder it just on having a medical cost on your shoulders. That alone is very, very hurtful. That alone is very, very painful, and that alone could hinder you for doing stuff in the future. The pharmaceuticals, we already seen news reports of how these pharmaceuticals, if they're the only ones making something, they pretty much got a monopoly. They're going to raise the prices how much they want and make any excuses they want. And too bad, we're the only ones making it. Who else is making it? We are. We need to do research. So you know what? We're going to jack up something that probably costs, $20 to make. Now you got to pay almost $4, $5, $6, even $1,000 for that same medicine, a life-saving medicine. The EpiPen is a perfect example of that. So there's a whole lot of issues that they must address. The medical field is a very much expensive field, and they're not getting any cheaper. Those who've been in an accident, those who've had major surgeries, you should know this. I mean, there's no question how much it can go to. When your surgery costs almost $100,000 just to perform, and you don't have $100,000 to cover it, that could lead to a whole lot of problems, a whole lot of stress. How are you going to get money for this and that? So anybody who says that health insurance is not important hasn't really seen the cost and the outlandish prices of a lot of these doctors, these hospitals, those who practice dentistry, and those who even prescribe the medicine. That is a huge problem, and it has hurt this country for years and years and years. If it didn't, well, the Affordable Care Act would never existed because it wouldn't have been an issue to begin with. And this is something of a very serious debate that's going to continue. This is not going to go away. This is something that is going to continue to be talked about for years to come, even if they decided finally to repeal the Affordable Care Act. My personal feeling about this is this, and I'm talking about the ones in the far right, because the far right seems to be more obsessed with repealing Obamacare than it is that those who are mostly moderate, who sees it needs to be worked on, but they want to see some changes and replacement, but don't know what's going on. I see the far right more on that side. I have to ask you something. Why is it that it's so hard for the Republicans and even Democrats? Why is it so hard for you guys to take what we have now, the Affordable Care Act bill, something that is already here, and just fix it? If it's a problem, why can't we just improve on it? It's already here. You don't have to replace it with anything, really. Just find out what was wrong with it and fix it from the ground up. I mean, the idea that the Democrat owns this, the Republican owns that, it makes no sense to me. All right? You guys are politicians. You guys make laws every single freaking day. All right? Whether it's on the federal level or state level. Why can't you just come together, sit down like mature adults, stop having this divide fraction going on, and really get the advice, see what's going on in all the medical field, the dentists, the hospitals, the medical insurance, the pharmaceuticals. Find out what's going on and come up with a solution that's going to help, that's going to satisfy everybody. And that's the whole thing. I don't see that happening. There's still this man divide. There's still liberal this, conservative that. We're talking about an important piece of legislation that everybody agree is flawed. There's no question about it. It's a flawed system. I'm not going to sit there and say it's a perfect system. It's a flawed system. But come together and fix the flawed system. You know, see what failed, see what worked, see what stuff that can improve, see what stuff you want to take out that can be a burden not only towards the state but towards the individuals who are going to be purchasing in this. Talk to the insurances, see what worked, see what didn't work, see what political rhetoric that was behind this. Because let's be honest, even some of the insurance companies, they seem to have their own political motive from bowing out on the Affordable Care Act. We got to keep it real. Not everything that happened is because of high expenses. It was a lot of rhetoric nonsense that was going on as well. And just fix it and repair it. Why does it have to be, we got to gut this, we got to cut that, we got to, trim down on this? If we're very serious about this piece of legislation, we're very serious about replacing Obamacare, just basically replace it, the system that didn't work within Obamacare. I think that would be more better than just basically gutting the whole thing and then trying to start over from scratch, which means pretty much nothing, because let's be honest, from day one, I did not feel they had a plan at all. And that was the thing that really bothers me about this whole thing with Trump. All right, he says a lot of stuff. It sounds very good. We all pumped up, we all wound up, but in the end of the day, he didn't really have a plan. And the perfect example is the Affordable Care Act itself. He didn't come up with this bill. Someone from the Republican Party came up with this bill, and there were 7 different scenarios of replacing Obamacare that I've heard about. None of it came from Trump. The only thing Trump did was, I support the idea, let's get it done. And speaking of which, I think the one thing that hurt Trump the most, and I think he needs to understand, and if he doesn't understand by then, he probably never will, but he needs to understand something. This idea, let's get it done, let's basically bullying, manipulating the Republican Party or anybody in the Congress to get things done, isn't going to fly. Never flies into history. There's not many people who can, basically flex his muscle like that. And Trump has been doing this with very little results. And he did this some no less than 48 hours ago when he said the time for negotiation is over. Get it done or else. And guess what? They didn't get it done. And by the way, a lot of those people, a lot of those Republicans who you basically threatened, and that's basically what it was, basically didn't took likely to what you're saying. Who the hell are you? We don't have to tell you. You don't tell us what to do. And that's exactly what they basically did. And that's why a lot of people feel, especially political analysts, feel that he's going to have a very hard time getting whatever he wants to get done, even with the Republican Party, because he's doing it in a way that is very close to dictatorship. I think somebody need to tell him that politics doesn't always work that way. Just like those people in the Senate, just like those people in the House of Representatives, you are a small piece of the puzzle. You are a minority within a minority, and this is proof of that. Trump is angry with his party. And I can't say I blame him. I honestly can't say I blame him. And, I'm not a big fan of Trump, but I can actually understand why he's mad. Now, people feel that that's good for him, serving rights, trying to manipulate his people, but I can understand why he's mad. Especially since the House here was so hell-bent on getting rid of Obamacare, but they didn't really have a plan to assist those who may be affected. Not one. Not one plan came to fruition. And I don't forget what was being said in the speeches. I don't forget what was being said at all when it comes to how they got in. We're going to replace it with something that's great. We're going to replace it with something that's wonderful. Well, you know what? You didn't have a plan. You didn't tell us what this wonderful thing was. And it turns out you didn't really have it. And as usual, when it came to the floor from someone else, not yours, this would happen. And I think Trump, in many ways, this is a wake-up call. Because I think he felt he was going to come in, he's going to make all these crazy changes. I don't think he realized, one, the pettiness of politicians, dependence on how that system works, and B, the laws that is in place himself to make sure, or at least that he had to go through to deal in terms of getting things done. And the perfect example is the ban, which, in case you haven't heard, about 3 weeks ago, has been very quiet since then. We haven't heard anything since then. I don't know if he's taking it to the Supreme Court. I'm assuming that he is. If not, then he's pretty much being very awfully quiet of not going pursuing what he wanted to pursue. But the travel ban, which by the way was blocked again in Hawaii, is a perfect example. He's getting mad at the judges and everything else, but then again, you got to understand why it's being done. And to me, he's doing a lot of stuff. At least with this one, I'll give him credit. He did at least soften it a little bit, if you want to call it that. He at least tried to actually try to make it where it could be presentable. But you still are talking to a group of people. There's still a race motivation behind the situation. You can say protecting our borders all you want, protecting people from coming in. The reality is this, and even if you agree with the travel ban or don't agree, the only way you're truly going to stop that kind of people coming into this country who's want to do harm is you ban everybody from coming to this country. Not just those in the Middle Eastern countries, Europe, Asia, Australia, and you're not going to do that. And that's the problem. The only way you're truly going to feel safe in terms of people who are supposedly going to do bad with us, those who are supposedly going to come here and do physical harm to us in America, if you ban everybody from coming to America. Whether they are just vacationing, whether they're here for business, whether they're here on a work visa, whether they're here to become, whether they're immigrants wanted to settle here, you're gonna have to do, you gotta ban the whole lot. You're not gonna do that. Another thing that continues to hurt him is the fact is that he made a speech that was pretty much racially charged, and they're playing into that situation. One of the main thing that the judge felt is that it was racially motivated. It's going to hurt the economy, and yeah, it's very questionable. So he temporarily blocked it. Of course, Trump, as usual, goes get people riled up. He said, "How dare you? We have a right to do something stuff." I think he needs to go back to the Constitution and find out what he can and cannot do, because there are stuff there that pretty much outlines it. So I don't know if he's going to go to the Supreme Court. I think he avoided the last time because he knew there was a 50-50 chance that he was going to lose. So he abandoned that idea and basically tried to work on a new executive order, which he's done a lot in his first 3 months. But I think there's a lot of stuff that is happening in this administration. I can actually say, because now it's been 3 months, so there's a quarter of a year that's been passed now. I see him wanting to do a lot of stuff, but I don't think he understands the football that he has to play to get stuff done. I think he's just throwing it out there and say, get it done. And that was a perfect example of him doing that with the Obama Repeal Act that they was trying to push. Get it done. No, you can't just do that. Not with these people. Whether there's a whole bunch of Democrats in the room, whether there's a whole bunch of Republicans, the one thing I'll say about Congress, they don't like being bullied. No, they do not like being bullied. The way the presidents passed, one of the great presidents who wasn't manipulated, those are gone, pretty much. And that's all thanks to pretty much Richard Nixon. Those days of them having that kind of power where they could actually say, come on, let's get things done, that's been long gone. And I think you gotta have to be a negotiator. You gotta know how to talk to people. You gotta know how to convince people. You just flex your muscles is not gonna get the answer done. And when it went down 24 hours ago, he should have said, if he wanted this thing done, he said, okay, let's not push this through yet. Let's talk to everybody, including Democrats, and see what can we do to make improvements. What can we do to fix this? What can we do to make everyone on board and satisfy everybody? How can we get some bipartisan support? Which was another thing that hurt him. He had no bipartisan support. None whatsoever. He was really banking and relying solely on the Republican Party. Right from the very beginning. He was relying solely on the Republican Party to get this push. And he didn't have enough votes in the Republican Party. Not one Democrat that said, I'm going to vote for this. Not a single one. He needed bipartisan, and he didn't get it. If it would have had bipartisan, there would have been a greater chance at him passing it, even with the 21 Republicans who didn't vote for it, than him just basically banking on all Republicans and no bipartisan. Another thing I notice here, and I'm going to analyze here, is that he seems very quick to go on his first draft than actually sitting down with actual talented people. And I say this because I'm talking about the budget. Another thing I've been watching lately, and another thing I'm just shaking my head and I'm saying, wow, this is not a budget. This is a hacksaw. I know there's a lot of military is getting a whole lot of money. I notice that he's looking to any way he can to fund a bridge that he claims would actually, that he wants to build, and he said he was going to build with Mexico money, which anybody who believes that by now is fooling themselves. You can't force a country to build something they don't want to. But now we're seeing the rough draft, and he's saying, well, everything is negotiable. What? You're presenting a budget that is pretty much reversal of what this country needs right now. You're cutting things left and right. You're cutting fundings left and right. But you're tripling, quadrupling the military. You're quadrupling money for this bridge. So it's very clear who's paying for it. Those agencies who would actually was beneficial for single mothers in case they couldn't afford a babysitter, they're paying for that. Planned Parenthood, you're cutting fundings on them. PBS, which would seem like be forever they was trying to cut PBS, and PBS don't even get that much from the federal money to begin with. You're cutting that. You're cutting a lot of programs. The list is ridiculous, and yet all that money seems to go to military and a war. Now look, I love my military. I want my men to be equipped. I want my men, my brothers and sisters who are serving and protecting us, to have the right equipment, the best equipment they can to do their job. But when you are overfunding them, that's not helping us and at home. Even the Republicans saying that, hey, this is ridiculous. And his response to this, and when people say this, that, well, it's not official. We're going to negotiate. And this is where you realize what a mistake is becoming here. This is where you realize what he's trying to do, and what I feared that he was going to do, and what I fear that he's not really understanding. He's trying to run this country the same way he ran his business. He's trying to run it in a kind of Wall Street / corporation kind of way, where you got to make some cuts, and you got to add something that be more beneficial, at least more beneficial to his liking. And this is what we're getting here at. And you may get away with it in your own business, but when you're dealing with taxpayers' money, that's not exactly what you want to show. That's not the bill. That's not the cuts you want to show to your politicians. That's just not. And a lot of people are always saying that it's highly unlikely that's going to get passed the way it is. It's highly unlikely that's gonna fly well. If they didn't pass the act to repeal Obamacare the way it was, it's highly doubtful they're gonna pass that the way it is. They can't go back into a lot of the places, which, by the way, a majority of these areas which Trump had the most support, and say, well, we got to cut your Meals on Wheels, and we got to cut this, we cut that. But hey, we boost our military. We finally got the money for the war, which we said that which the president said that Mexico was going to pay for. They're not going to do that. It's one of the reasons why you didn't hear too much about it, because everybody's saying it ain't going to be passed. It is something that I think that Trump, again, and I also pretty much blame the idiot who put that framework. I've seen him on the news, and I'm like, you're going to base the budget plan, the American budget plan, the budget plan that taxpayers pay for, you're going to base it on a speech that Trump has? Are you kidding me? And that's how you're going to come up with this ridiculous budget? I don't know what people he got around them, but already they're pissing me off. These are the people that I'm supposed to have faith on, that they're going to do the right thing. You already got one of them saying that, the global warming is not an issue. Yet he's in charge of the environmental agency, which should never have been, considering his past history. I just don't I just don't get it. But this is something that I'm very, very worried about. This continues, and keep in mind, this is only just 1 year. This is just the first 3 months, and I'm not feeling what it's doing. And before anybody come in here, and I'm gonna, because I know there's gonna be a lot of Trump fans who love this guy, who love his speech, who love what he has to say. I'm going to tell you right now, this is something I'm going to be very specific here, because a lot of people say I'm a liberal. I'm more moderate than you actually believe. I don't take sides in any of the politicians here. If it was Obama doing this, it would have done the same thing. And I criticize Obama for a lot of things he have done in his administration. But I got to call it like what it is, right? Especially for those who are fans of Trump. I got to question why you are fans of him. Are you fans because you feel he's going to do a great job? Or are you a fan because he is one of those popular TV shows guys who knows how to, play with words, know how to, do a promo? Because that's basically what he's doing. He's doing a wrestling promo. And in case you don't know, look at WWE in his time of being there and how he got into electric. He's doing a promo. Hey, I can't knock him. We got him in the office. But can you honestly say the stuff he's doing is not going to affect you? You're fooling yourself. Even those who have voted for Trump have been affected by some of the dumb stuff he has done, and not in a good way. Even those who thought they had Trump will be on his side, realizing there was some stuff that they're cutting that they need. And these are in mostly certain areas. So before you say, oh, I'm against Trump, I'm looking at it from a domino effect point of view. It's not going to just affect me, it's going to affect a whole lot of people. A lot of people was not supportive of Hillary. A lot of people was supportive of any of the Democrats. They're going to get affected just as much as I am. And some worse than others. So you got to understand it. This is not this popularity aside. I'm looking at his performance. I'm looking at what he's doing, how he's doing it, how he's going about it. And I think that it's high time that we take this thing seriously. All jokes aside, all the jokes aside with all the comedians, because that's their job. But when it comes to a guy who is supposed to be our president, I gotta ask the question: is he really up for the job? There are a lot of signs that says he doesn't know what the hell he's doing, doesn't know what he's getting into, and now you got analysts, political analysts, bipartisan political analysts, who are saying, "Hey, this guy really don't realize the meaning of politics." We still got that situation with the allegation, and look, I take that seriously. The wiretapping thing, I take that seriously, and he has never provided any proof. He's been keeping very quiet about it. But if you think that's going to go away, that's not, because you made a serious allegation. And believe me when I say they're going to be looking into those allegations very heavily, and I hope this doesn't lead to him getting charged with making a slander, making a false statement. But there's a whole lot of stuff that I just felt right off the bat that this is everything but what we need right now. You may disagree. You may think he's doing a great job. I just don't see it right now. He made one decent speech addressing the House. Other than that, it's been one big disaster after another. The situation with the travel ban, this here, we still don't know what the new tax thing he's trying to pass. We don't know about this budget that may not pass. So anything he wants to do is being put is in limbo right now. It's no way they put it. It's been limbo. And even those who have voted for him, those who felt he was going to be better than what Hillary was, starting to actually have second thoughts now. I'm starting to realize that, wait a minute, some of the stuff he's doing is going to affect me as well. What is he doing? I voted for you. What the hell are you doing? Yes, he voted for him. Does it mean that he's going to have all his best interests in heart? It's been an interesting few weeks, though. It gave me something to think about. And again, the media has downplayed it, not because they felt it was not important, but because they pretty much knew. You can tell when the media doesn't really make it a big deal to make this front and center news, when they don't really report on it the way you expect them to report. Because I tell you right now, the vote to repeal Obamacare was almost an afterthought. I think it would have been more of a shocker, and we would have heard more from the political parties as well as the news covering more so than anything else, if they did actually pass it. I think it would have been a shocker to them. But not one media outlet that I've seen, whether it can be conservative, liberal, or pretty much down the middle, felt that they was going to pass it, and therefore they didn't really bother covering it as much. They mentioned it, and then they kept it moving. And that was it. They didn't even bother. And again, when it was delayed the first time, Trump said get it done or else, and then again it didn't happen again, basically killing any hopes of that bill ever reaching the floor. Again, they talk about what Trump was saying, what the Congress was saying, and they kept it moving. Even talk show hosts said that it's highly unlikely we're going to see anything resolved in the next few years. And if that's the case, and I agree with them, I said, so be it, that's good. But during that first year, even that first 2 years, there should be people thinking, putting their heads together of how to improve the healthcare system. Instead of just gutting it, just improve it. Because the one thing they cannot deny, healthcare is a big issue in this country. It always has been. Now, moving from the side of healthcare, I just got a question for these extreme right wingers, the one who just basically want to cut a lot of stuff, basically want to lower taxes to a point where you can't run a government, even to the point where they just want to peel Obamacare because Obama's name on it. I mean, do you guys want progress? Do you guys want this country to move forward? Do you guys want us to be the laughingstock of the whole entire world? Does it seem like that's what you guys are shooting for? I never understood this idea we must preserve our culture, our way of life. What way of life are you actually preserving? What are you really preserving? Why is it that when you hear the word Obamacare, which by the way is to me, that's where it really hits, because heckling Obama didn't come up with this law. If you want to be honest, it was a Republican who had the blueprint for this type of law, this type of policy, and that was Mitt Romney, a Republican. To me, can we acknowledge that real quick? But why is it when Obama put his name onto it and took it further, why is it that this is an issue? Why is it that you can't call it the Affordable Care Act? And why is it that you can't use the Affordable Care Act right now, which you guys are in power right now, and just fix it? Is most of you guys are so hell-bent to stick it to Obama that you're willing to just basically, repeal something that many people who otherwise couldn't afford health insurance now have to basically be kicked out of health insurance because you guys have a grudge against the president? It makes me question whether it's racially motivated. That's one. It made me question that you guys are not really representatives, but more of puppets for a corporation or organization that you're truly representing. Because obviously some of you guys ain't representing the people. I seriously don't. I'm not buying it. There's too much pettiness here. And this is not something from Donald Trump's side. This is something from the side of most of the people who are in Congress, who's supposed to represent my country, who's supposed to represent the people. There's way too much pettiness that is basically sickens me. There's too much extremeness that's going on in the Republican Party, as well as the Democrat Party too. They're not all innocent in this. I'm putting them right up there as well. Is it really that hard for you guys to come together, both Democrat and Republicans, sit down like mature adults, reassess the Affordable Care Act, find out what worked, what didn't work? Are you guys that petty and that thuggish? And yeah, I'm gonna say it like it is, thuggish, that you're willing to just basically let the country fall apart? I honestly don't get it. I really don't. And frankly, it bothers me that you guys are in office representing the United States of America. It really does. It makes me wonder about what your true agenda is. I've seen 8 years of some of you guys basically sit on your asses and do nothing, all because President Barack Obama was in office. I am about to see the same thing again here, because you're not getting your way, because it didn't fit your format, your idea of what America was or used to be or never was. I really don't understand you. You're going by the same old policies that A, really didn't work the first time, and B, when you guys actually implement in some counties or some cities or some part of the region, it had a negative effect. Can I continue to talk about Kansas and how much of a mess that is right now, to the point where even some Republicans saying we got to, about face, because right now we can't even run our government right now. There are people in office that need to grow up. It really is, and immigrants are no different too. I'm getting tired of hearing the race card being played. I'm getting tired of hearing how you're either this or that. Get the job done. Represent the people. Find out what worked or didn't work. Read the policies that you have. Assess the policies. Do something that which you guys should be doing, but for some reason rejecting it, and expect positive results by rejecting it. Critical thinking. Don't just present a law and then expect there's no, fact, some fallout to the law that you guys are trying to pass. Read what is being said. Assess what could happen if this law is passed, the good and the bad, and see does the good outweigh the bad. It's all really I want. It annoys me that seeing this pettiness goes on in our nation capital. It really is. Nothing gets done. Everybody's pinning everybody against everybody else. It's really a disgrace, really. In the end, who loses? We do. The American people. Because when we out there voting to hope things get done, this stuff happens. Well, that's all I gotta say for now. I will say this before I go on. I actually am a few blocks away from a very sad scene. In case you guys have not heard, because this is pretty much local news. EMT worker have lost a life after some guy who had a history of mental illness jumped into the EMT's van and ran her over, killing her. This was talked about for a while. They're having the funeral session. I believe it's over right now because they started around, time is it 8:05 in the morning. It's 5:55 now, so I'm pretty sure it was over, but it was pretty much hectic. They barricaded a lot of the streets, but a lot of people was going into the church near University Avenue, a big church. I actually went in there. It's huge, it's beautiful, but it is pretty much the scene of that. A lot of the EMT went to the court hearing. There's also been some issues that's been surrounding it, which the FBI is involved, but nevertheless, this was a very tragic accident of a person who has actually have served her community in the medical field, lost her life, and a lot of people have shown up to support her. The Sons was there, and it has been one chaotic thing, but not in the way that you would kind of expect. In terms of that, but it was something that it was sad to hear. We also have another tragedy, and I'll say this about this tragedy here, because we have this similar problem in my apartment building. And I say this: parents, tell your kids to stay away from the roof. There's no reason for them to be up there. There's no business being there. There was a kid, a 13-year-old, and I believe a 15-year-old. They was playing on the roof. They was jumping from one roof to the other, and they missed their mark. They fell. One died, the 13-year-old. The 15-year-old is in stable condition as we see, but now a lot of questions are going to be thrown into there. One, they wasn't even in the building, so why they was there is still going to be a question by itself. They probably get to that later. But the most importantly, and this is something that they just recently fixed in my building, thank goodness. Why was there no lock on the door? That is something that really bothers me a lot when I see that. They did try putting a special alarm on the roof. That obviously didn't work because kids were still going on the roof. On the roof in general. They recently put a lock on the door, but make no mistake about it, that apartment building is going to be investigated. They're going to be checked out, and that's going to be something that going to be talked about. Again, two boys, one 13, one 15, playing on the roof, jumping over to the other side of the building. Missed their mark, fell. A witness said that it sounded like a refrigerator crashing to the ground. This person actually was a former superintendent. Kind of curious why he would left that job, but he looked down and he saw the horrors from there. But again, from what the people said, that they wasn't supposed to be in the first place. So it makes me wonder just how easy it is to access that building. This was happening, I believe, in Brooklyn, and the fact is that why was no real knock on the door. That's going to be a very question by itself, and believe me when I say it's going to be a lot of people who's going to end up having to answer for that, especially those person who owned the building. Because again, one of the major gripes I had, and I didn't realize until I saw hearing the wind slamming the door in my building, I was amazed that the door was not locked. It was not locked. Forget about not locked. There was no handle. There was no latch. It was just one door, and that was it. You can actually see through what supposed to be the handle was right through there. So, thankfully, they fixed this, and that you can't go up there. The door is locked, secured. But obviously, that's something, especially for old buildings, that they seem to not get around with. And to me, the only way you're going to avoid it is you're going to have a door with a probably fire handle on there, and that pretty much put an end to that. But unfortunately, it came too late for these two, who, one is hurt, one lost his life. We had a very interesting incident in Jersey, and in case you haven't heard, one of the stars of the Real Housewives of New Jersey name was mentioned. There was a charge that happened. There was an arrangement, and needless to say, when it comes to this kind of situation, especially when emotions run high, especially from someone who have lost a loved one, and this person is back up taking that loved one, you can pretty much get the result of what can happen in a courthouse like that. From what I understand, the person was shot. The car was burned. It was two people that was found dead in the car. This car was registered to a star of the reality TV show. Everything else is pretty much sketchy at the moment, so they're obviously not going to reveal too much what's going on. But there are speculation that there's a lot more than what is officially put on the news. One thing I do know, it doesn't seem like there's, from what I understand and from what I've been hearing and reading, it doesn't seem that the involvement does not include the star of Housewife New Jersey. So that's the one thing about it. This car was either stolen or at least to someone else, and they found it charred and burned up. But that was the situation. And finally, just gonna leave it with this. I will talk about this morning team roundup. Congratulations to USA on beating Puerto Rico in the World Classic baseball series, which I actually didn't even realize it was actually being played. It was something that was mentioned. I didn't know what it was mean. Kind of weird that they did it in this and that most of the baseball players didn't get involved with, but I'm not sweating any tears. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of hockey. Shutting themselves down for 2 weeks for hockey for the professional players to play in the sport. I got my mixed feeling on that. The same thing with basketball, but at least with basketball, there's a time frame. So I'm not. I just felt that it was just weird that that thing went on. I kept an eye on it. I was actually hearing what was going on. A lot of people was invested, especially within the Spanish community, was really invested in what was going on in the baseball world. So that's always a good thing. To hear that there was a group of people was invested. I just felt that it was just a weird timing that they actually had the World Game, and yet I'm listening to the Yankees preseason warm-ups before they start playing this coming week. But again, congratulations, U.S. Kind of curious if they're going to be a party. Nothing really was said after that. They won, and that was it. Which is very interesting. Is that I don't think they're going to actually do a welcome home party for the guys who have won. But it's just weird how it's just nothing was actually mentioned. We had a parade for the women's soccer team who won the championship here. That was something that I thought was a good gesture for our mayor. Kind of surprised that no other city decided it would be a good gesture to have. The United States baseball team have the same thing, down the Kenyan Heroes. It's just, I find it very strange. All right, guys. I don't want to go past that 1 hour mark, so I'm just going to leave it at that. Again, as always, if you got any comments, agree or disagree with what I have to say, leave it in the comment section below. Let me know. Until next time, J77 saying take care, be safe, talk to you soon. Bye-bye.